Hey folks, welcome to the chapter 6.1 through 6.3 review. I'm obviously going to do everything on the we do side, so let's get started. If you see n is 8, I want you to write it as the 8th root of whatever a says, 6, 5, 6, 1, x to the 8th, y to the 16th. You could also represent it by saying 6, 5, 6, 1, x to the 8th, y to the 16th, and then that is going to be raised to the 1/8 power, okay? But the answer is going to have a plus or minus because you have an even root of 8, and then just take the 8th root of 65, 61, and then divide your exponents by 8. So that's going to get me, the 8th root of 65, 61 is 3, and then 8 divided by 8 is power of 1, and 16 divided by 8 is 2. So I get 3x y squared for number 1. Number 2, same thing, except it's an odd root, so you won't have a plus or minus, but you'll show your work by just setting it up like so, or writing it to the 1/3 power. Alright, so all your roots are fractional powers, so square root 1/2, third root 1/3, eighth root 1/8, you know, I think you get the picture. But, oh, I wrote this to the 1/2. I meant to write it to the 1/3. Okay, so the third root of 216, and then divide the x to the 18 by 3, y to the 24th, divide that by 3. And you'll get 6 times x to the 6th times y to the 8th for your final answer. Okay, again, no plus or minus because n equals 3, that's an odd number. So here we're going to convert the expression into radical form or exponential form if it's in the radical form, and then we'll get the answer. So converting this to radical form, 1/3, that tells me it's the third root. So I just take the third root of 1,000 x to the 3 power, x to the third power. So the third root of 1,000 is 10. And then x to the third cube rooted is just x. So the answer is just 10x. The next one, 1/2 power, that's going to be a square root. So what's the square root of 1024 x to the 10th y squared? All right. So the square root of 1024 is 32. And then divide those powers by 2, x to the 5th and y. And then don't forget to throw a plus or minus on there because it's a square root. That's an even root. All right, so here we have a radical, and now we're going to convert it to exponential form. So that's 625 x to the 4th, and then that'll be raised to the 1/4 power, okay? And then just take the 4th root of 625 and then divide your exponent, x to the 4th, divide that by 4. And since it's an even root, you have a plus or minus answer, so you get plus or minus 5x for the final answer. This next one, what's the cube root of 729? And divide 27 by 3. So cube root can be expressed as 729 x to the 27th raised to the 1/3 power, and the cube root of that is going to be 9, and x to the 27th, divided by 3 would be x to the 9th. It wouldn't have a plus or minus because that's an odd root. Yeah, that's all there is to say about that one. So for this next section, we're going to be doing a little bit of solving. Solving will be the same way you do any other kind of algebraic problem. Think in terms of opposites. The first thing you always want to do is look for something you can add or subtract to the other side. So I'm going to minus 32 to the other side. So that's 2, it gives me 2 times x minus 4 raised to the 3rd power equals 432. And then you can divide out that 2, but you wouldn't want to do that without subtracting that 32 to the other side first. So dividing out 2 leaves me with 216. So now, how do you get rid of the third power? You take the third root to each side. So doing the third root to each side, look behind the x minus 4, of course, and then the third root of 216 is 6. So x minus 4 equals 6. You can just plus 4 to the other side. 6 plus 4 is 10, and 10 minus 4 equals 6, so yeah, that works out. So the answer is 10. So in this next one, the first step is going to be add 10 to the other side. Don't divide out that 3 first. Remember, always add or subtract first if there's a number to add or subtract first, of course. So 182 plus 10 is 192. And so now I'll divide 192 by 3. And then I have the square root of 4x equals 64. So how am I going to get rid of a square root? Well, you can just square a square root, and you'll get rid of the square root. So squaring both sides leaves me with 4x, and 64 squared is a large number, which is 4,096. So divide 4 to both sides, and you're going to get x equals 1,024 for your final answer, okay? So yeah, that's really all there is to the solving ones. Here we're going to just go back to simplifying. What's the fifth root of 32? That's 2. What's the fifth root of x to the fifth? That's x. What's the fifth root of y to the 15? That's y to the third. Just divide the powers. And that's the final answer. On this next one, I can't subtract these until they both have the same thing in the square root. So if I change the square root of 45x to, we'll divide it by 5x, that gives you 9 times the 5x. And if I take the square root of 9, that's 3. And so I can turn in that square root of 45x into the square root of 3 times the square root of 5x, excuse me. And everything else would just carry down. So I have 4 times that, so now I have 4 times 3, so that makes 12 times the square root of 5x. Alright? And so this said 12 times the square root of 5x minus that, so the answer will just be 0. Okay? Let's see here. We're going to describe the transformations and then identify the domain and range. Okay? So here you have the square root of x for your original, and you have a 2 on the outside, so that is going to be a vertical stretch. You have a plus 3 on the inside, so that is going to go left 3. And then you have a minus 2 on the outside, and that's going to go down 2. You can always, graph it to check, but trust me, I'm not wrong. Now, where's the domain and range? So look at the square root of x graph. It's going to actually look like this one right here. But it went left 3 and went down 2. So my domain is going to be, if it went left 3, then it went to negative 3. And I'll just say x is greater than or equal to negative 3. Or you might see it as negative 3 to infinity. Alright, and then the range, well, we said the range went down 2. So I'll say y is greater than or equal to negative 2. Or you'll see it as negative 2 to positive infinity. Okay? I really do want to encourage you to graph it just to check it. I did everything just by looking at the equation, of course, but I know my stuff. So it's like plugging in the 2 times the square root of x plus 3 minus 2. You see that the domain shifted over left 3, and then it's going to the right. So that's what I said happened. And then the range, it started at negative 2 on the y-axis, and then it's going up. So it's just an easy thing to check and just something to keep in mind for, test taking strategy. So this next one, I'm identifying the transformations. It went up 1, 2, 3, 4 spots, okay? And then it went over 1, 2, 3 to the right. So I'm going to say, that's really all I need to say. I need to say it went up 4 and right 3. And then what's my domain and range? Well, my domain of the g function is that it is starting at 3 and going right forever. So x is greater than or equal to 3, or you can say 3 to positive infinity. And then the range, well, where is it starting again? It started at 4, so y is greater than or equal to 4, or just say 4 in a bracket to infinity. And that's really going to wrap this up for the review. Good luck on the test, and thank you for watching. Bye.